It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Before we get into our analysis that we were doing as the show was going on today of the latest Trump indictments, this was an article from about 36 hours ago in Huffington Post. You ready for this? Here we go.
All right.
Why would Trump leave office after a second term if prison awaits? Experts fear he won't.
They're just making it up as they go along.
Yeah.
Why not? If you can make up indictment charges, why then just out of not breaking the law? Well, there's no telling what he'll do. If he wins, the left is going to lose their ever-loving mind. Because where do you go from here? Hey, I'm old enough to remember scorched earth. Remember that? We're so far past that. This is, I don't even know why we're trying to go to another planet. We're already on another planet. That's what this is. This is just insane land, and we'll just make up, and it'll be fear-mongering over and over and over and over and over and over and over. If he wins, and here's the thing, too. If he wins, that's his last election. He'll never be campaigning for... Now, he'll still have rallies, no doubt. He may have rallies if he loses. But the thing is that it's, where do they go? I mean, clearly they would want to move to impeach again. He's wearing, again, he's going to wear that like a letterman's jacket. It's not a scarlet letter like they think. And over again, they just demonstrate how insane they are.
When we woke up last night, didn't get a chance because woke up at our normal time because we work this shift. But it was really for me until I got in here where I started reading through the latest indictment. And you're trying to do it quick, and you're trying to get through and get it into your brain as accurately as possible. Mm-hmm. And then when it settled in, finally I think maybe about, because it was 93 pages, so wasn't able to read it even before the show began, the entire thing. Probably got to about 70%. Then during commercial breaks over the next hour or so, read the rest of it. And you look at it, and it's really, really, really unbelievable. And it's interesting that some of the most powerful things said on this entire situation come from one of the most liberal people in the United States, who would be Alan Dershowitz, who has stated over and over again, if you're going to go after a president, it better be a slam dunk. And I think he means like crime, bribes, whatever.
Yeah.
But you go through all of the counts of the indictment, and if you're just waking up right now, we'll give you a rough overview of what the indictment is about. The indictment, in essence, charges a conspiracy and RICO Act violations, which include all the speech of Trump, tweets, whatever, as a way to complete the enterprise or the conspiracy to commit the crime, which is attempting to, overthrow the election by committing fraud with having fake electors.
Yeah.
And we have gone through every point that is well known. If you're not living in the bubble of today, as so many people do, the Democrats absolutely do live in the bubble of today. We know that. You can see that with the Hunter Biden case and how it evolves. And there's no recognition from them that what you were saying 2 weeks ago is not what you're saying now. But when you look at it, that number one, there wasn't an overthrow. There wasn't an attempted overthrow. The January 6th committee that would not allow any cross-examination of the evidence whatsoever couldn't come up with any type of, conspiracy to overthrow the election. Even Jack Smith, couldn't get that done, the whole insurrection part of it. Yet they stick to that narrative on a consistent basis, but there are no dots to connect there and never have been dots to connect there. So the dots now are, in my humble opinion, revising history.
Yeah.
And saying that the fraud is the fake electors, where if you paid attention to it, you knew that the electors were there in case the court made a ruling that was in Trump's favor, and then Trump would have electors that were certified by that December 14th. And in Georgia specifically, the head of the Republican Party stated that over and over and over. These are not electors to replace at this time the Biden electors. This is only if the judge finds that the election was fraudulent, then Trump would have his electors ready to go at that point. But the judge would make that decision. It wasn't Trump. And from that perspective, when you look at the things that they attempt to make, and remember, each count of the conspiracy, including one of the counts against Trump, is that Trump said, hey, there's hearings, watch it on TV.
Yeah.
That's
the tweet.
That is a tweet. That's one of the counts of the conspiracy. It's one of the counts that you would find Trump guilty on that would add years to his sentence. And it's actually, he put out a tweet, hey, why don't you watch this? Will be interesting to see how many. We were one of the first to review it that we could see, and after we had reviewed the majority of it, we did see that Margot Cleveland, I don't know where she is right now, if she's with the Federalist or where she is now, but we followed her for a long time on issues. She was just, it was actually pretty funny, the stuff she was writing. Like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
What do you mean? This makes no sense. It is really convoluted. It's like we're going to throw everything, into the basket and see what comes out here. But when you go through it, so much of it, just like Smith, is about criminalizing political free speech and counting political free speech as part of a conspiracy to commit the ultimate crime, which the ultimate crime, you need a crime in order to have a conspiracy at the end of it. There is, from what we can see, no crime.
Right.
Or the crime that she states she bases on evidence that doesn't exist.
Right.
The evidence that exists is that, no, these were to be replacement electors if the courts ruled their way. And so, and then the thing is, I think it's going to be interesting to see because I don't know how to analyze all the things of the RICO statutes that is being filed under Georgia law that involves everything that was done or said about the other states. I don't know. I honestly don't know, with my limited legal experience, how that will come up in the wash. I'm trying to I'll be very much anticipating what other legal experts will say on that today.
Yeah.
Because there's been very little analysis on it overnight. You and I said, wow, everybody closes up quickly, don't they? We close up quickly after COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody goes home.
Except in Chicago, where they want to allow, people to kill each other.
Well, that's why you go home.
9 p.m. and 9 a.m.
Yeah, be inside.
By the way, 9 p.m. to 9 a.m.,
So during morning traffic?
That's what I mean.
It's acceptable?
7 o'clock morning traffic. You have more people out on the roads at that time. 7 and 9.
Yeah.
By the way, that's a group, just in case you're tuning in, a group in Chicago is advocating that people only shoot guns at each other between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m.
Yeah. Gangs don't shoot anybody between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. After 9 p.m.,
go for it.
Listen, what are we going to do about it? Just insane. It really is.
Yeah, so it's you look at it, and from what I can see, this is, again, another DA being involved in election interference.
Yeah.
Because these things are not. The only thing in there, and we had stated this first, and Margot Cleveland said this, but we don't know what it is, where she stated that one of the counts is perjury, but it's not stated specifically why it's perjury.
Right.
We don't know who committed the perjury.
Yeah, we understand what perjury is, but where's the evidence of that perjury? Right. Where does that exist here?
Because she talks a lot about false statements.
Mm-hmm.
False statements are protected political speech.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, if that's the new standard, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Biden's doing life.
Yeah.
Which, again, may not be a real long time,
but nonetheless.
Yes. He's doing life in prison for his lies. Hillary will be in jail for the rest of her life, if that's the case. And if you look at the whole RICO conspiracy that they're trying to make, Republicans could have made a much better case that was still bogus for Hillary.
Right.
Still would have been bogus. But they, based on the Democratic standard, they would have a much stronger case against Hillary. Because she actually there was actually an enterprise that was leading the entire thing and directing it, every movement of that.
Yeah.
There were people inside of it directing where the money went, lying about what the money was for, getting the dossier and distributing it so people could see it, selling it to the media, selling it to law enforcement. And it was all a lie to discredit the 2016 election. And you've got a money trail in there that goes from the top all the way to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
There is no such money trail at all in any of the indictments here. It's basically the general culture of the people and the Republicans that knew Trump following what he was stating. Our point is there is a much stronger case, and nobody ever thought about prosecuting Hillary for that. Ever.
No, I mean, this is and this is it. It's how can we, and it's not, again, there's no legal standard here. It's how can we bend and shape the law to apply where we just want it to apply. It's like a child's tea party. Well, there's no tea in the cup, but don't you dare tell the child that. You're sitting there and, you just kind of have to go through the motions, which is, by the way, the most annoying thing about having kids. Let's all face it.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Yes, some parts of the country reported July average high temperatures in their all-time top 10 list for the month. The USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey also points out,
we did see relatively cool conditions for at least the first 3 weeks of the month across the northern plains and upper Midwest.
Translated,
when you rank those 129 years, it was actually the 27th coolest July in North Dakota. We saw somewhere in the top 40 for coolest July in 4 other north central states, including South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, and Minnesota.
However, precipitation-wise, the nation experienced a mixed bag, resulting in the 45th driest July in 129 years of record keeping.
The real core wet area during July stretched from the central Great Plains eastward through the Ohio Valley and into the Northeast. Pretty much everybody around that core wet area had a relatively dry month.
I'm Ron Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report is made possible by Cenex Roadmaster XL Premium Diesel and Citgo Lubricants.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, the interesting thing is that the phone call to the Secretary of State does not appear to be one of the counts, which everybody thought was the strongest point of it. You just pointed out that one of the charges is actually based on the lawsuit that Trump filed in the state of Georgia.
Right.
And because it was not found that the lawsuit Trump lost, and, you know, they said, no, you're wrong on this, you're wrong on this, so you lose, that she is prosecuting him for false statements in an official proceeding. Can you imagine if that stuck in the state of Georgia and the federal courts found that if you filed a lawsuit,
right,
not that you wouldn't be, because we've talked about bogus lawsuits that are filed that are handled in the civil courts.
Sure.
That you would have to pay the other people's lawyer fees.
Right.
Nobody has ever attempted well, maybe they've attempted it. I don't know anybody who's ever been successful in stating if you file a lawsuit and the other side wins, that then the DA can say, well, you lost because what you put here and here wasn't accurate. Therefore, you filed a false statement. Therefore, you're going to jail.
Yeah. They filed a document unlawfully, it reads, unlawfully filed a document titled Verified Complaint for Emergency Injunctive and Declaratory Relief.
That's the lawsuit.
Now, that's in the matter of, and it says it here in the indictment, of Trump v. Kemp. This is a case that went into the U.S. District Court there for the Northern District of Georgia, a court of the U.S. What the claim is, the charge is, because what they were claiming in their lawsuit was ultimately deemed to be false through the process, they lied about something, in this case, to the courts. The lawsuits.
Well, is it a lie, or did they say it's simply a false statement?
Well,
there's a difference between lying or perjury and a false statement.
Well, they included materially false statements, and that's what you're talking about.
Right.
You included these statements in your filing. And so when you do that, if you lose, then what's the point of a lawsuit? If you file a lawsuit, then you got to bring whatever charge you're making, whatever claim you're making, it is on you. You have the burden of proof. If it's disproven, then you can be charged with a crime? That's insane.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio. from the Uniden America Studios.
And it's Friday Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Our audio cut of the day comes from Alan Dershowitz. Now, this is before the actual indictments came down, but viewing the indictments that accidentally came down, which apparently were the same thing as the indictments that came down earlier in the day. And this is Alan Dershowitz, the liberal law professor, loyal Democrat, non-Trump supporter, discussing what he believes is going on here. Here we go.
Well, first of all, nobody should take at all seriously the fact that there was a grand jury indictment. It means nothing. It's the prosecutor who indicted. The best evidence of that is that it was on his website before the grand jury even voted. Now, the whole strategy of all these four cases is to get a conviction before the election, even if they're going to lose on appeal. I used to teach my students, many of them future prosecutors, if you bring a RICO case, that increases your chances of winning a trial and losing on appeal. The same thing is true with conspiracy and other cases involving mental states. And so all four of these cases are designed to get quick convictions in jurisdictions that are heavily loaded against Donald Trump. And these prosecutors don't care as much as prosecutors generally do about having the convictions reversed on appeal, because that will happen after the election, which only goes to prove what I've been arguing now for months. If you're going after the man who's running against your incumbent president, you would darn well better have the strongest case possible. And these are among the four, at least three of them, three weakest cases I've ever seen against any candidate. We don't know about the fourth, but it seems like it's very much like the D.C. case. And if you're going after the man running for president against your person, you have to have the strongest case. Otherwise, it becomes a banana republic. Anybody can prosecute anybody. And we're opening the door to prosecution of Democrats by Republicans, Republicans by Democrats. It's what Alexander Hamilton wrote in The Federalist is the most dangerous threat to democracy. And we're seeing it unfold in front of our eyes very, very tragically. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I care deeply about the Constitution. I care deeply about preserving the rule of law, and we're seeing it being frittered away for partisan political purposes.
One of the things, I wish everybody could have been a fly on our wall tonight inside the studio, because this thing came down so late that we were reading the indictment and trying to analyze it as the show was going on, which is always interesting. And the thing, and I'd said this early on, you keep wondering, okay, I'm reading this so quickly. Is my initial analysis correct? And we did put in that disclaimer because you're trying to get through it real quick. But I will tell you, as we sit here over the last 5 hours looking at this, it's a constant. Well, I'll tell you from my side, I'm over here looking at things, and all I hear is Eric over there going, "You got to be kidding me!" And then boom, and both of us will bring up to each other, "Look at this part of the indictment here. There's nothing here." And the last one was Eric about 15 minutes ago. We just went, they're calling the lawsuit in Georgia a false statement,
Right.
That a knowingly false statement. And when you file a lawsuit, as you did in this particular case, you sit there and say, here's what we believe might have happened. And that's why we want discovery to find out, because we believe this election may have been stolen.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you may have some people in your campaign saying it was stolen. But the fact is, once you file, where it becomes illegal is if somebody takes the stand or you start filing official documents after the charge to the judge and you start saying this particular person did that. And if they didn't do it, it was obviously false. The judge is going to be quite angry at you. But most of these things, when they were filed, none of us had any idea whether they were true or not.
Well, that's that's the other thing, too. You're right. Because what it does is it basically places hindsight, the 2020 vision of hindsight, into then what was going on at that time and assigning it the same 2020 vision.
Right.
And you can't do that.
No.
Because if you're making all these claims in your lawsuit, that, okay, this many people weren't eligible to vote and they voted anyway, this many felons voted, there were a number of things that they listed. And are listed in the indictment as false claims. Well, that implies that it's already been proven false. The whole point of the lawsuit is to bring the lawsuit, make the claim. When you bring the charges, the burden of proof is on you. You've got to demonstrate that. If you don't, you're going to fail in court.
Remember, one of the things that Republicans pushed for the longest time was in civil lawsuits. If you bring something up, if it's a bogus lawsuit, if it's a nuisance lawsuit,
mm-hmm.
and there's no merit to it, you have to pay the other person's legal fees.
Yep.
Democrats never wanted that.
Right.
What it looks like is happening here is she wants to take lawsuits that, if you're on the losing end of it, means you filed false statements because you didn't have an argument.
Right.
And therefore, not that you should pay the other side's legal fees, but you need to be prosecuted criminally.
Yes. It's a criminal violation if you go in making such claims and they're proven to be false because you filed these documents.
But you didn't know. Or people would say, this is what we see. Or analysts would say, look at what's going on in this particular building here. We believe it's this. We've got a witness. Well, I don't have time, because you've got time limitations at December 14th, time limit to figure out, the certification of the electors. You had very limited time to actually prove it. So you take allegations and you go forth with it. Now, if you go to court and in the process of the testimony being given, you tell a lie, then that's when you charge perjury or knowingly putting out false statements.
Right.
But basically that would be perjury at that particular point. So it shows you how dangerous it is, because so much of what is being charged here, so many of the indictments, the actual charges, is political free speech. And it's amazing. And I looked at you a little while ago and I said, Eric, this actually may be weaker than the Allen Bragg indictment. And the reason I bring up the Bragg is because that's the other, basically, a more on state charges than on federal charges.
Mm-hmm. But it's still empty in its merits.
And I think one of the other shocking things is that, you talk about, Turley especially was on the thing that, look, the thing they got to be using, unless they've got something else, the thing they've got to be using is the call that Trump made, where he said, find the 11,000 votes or whatever. And he's been all over that the past week, saying, look, even if he meant, create those 11,000 votes, commit fraud and do that, even if that's what he meant, he didn't say that.
Yeah.
He said something else, and nobody proceeded or tried to create 11,000 votes out of thin air. And he said, obviously, he said, and this is Turley, a Democrat, saying how I read it was, he was saying, look, this doesn't need to go to a runoff. See if the 11,000 votes are out there. If they actually exist, is how you look at it. And so when you look at this, I'm amazed that you would file it. I'm not amazed that a Democrat would, because I've seen how Democrats operate the last 5 years. We've seen what happened with Russia collusion, for example. But if Trump is guilty here, then Stacey Abrams is guilty. Hillary Clinton is guilty.
Right.
It's and they're not. They're not guilty of anything. That's the point. They're not.
Well, and anyone who filed a lawsuit claiming something that was proven to be false would also be
later
guilty.
on. Right. And as you're going through this process, you hear all these allegations. You go, here are the allegations we have. We want all of this to go through a court, which means then the court decides what the court's going to do, and that's what they did. But you're going through the court process to find out what the truth actually is. That's why you're doing it.
Right. I mean,
But if you're going to,
it really is insane.
If you're going to criminalize the loser in a civil lawsuit, because in a civil lawsuit is, you owe me money because of this. No, I don't owe you money because of that. Right?
Right.
Somebody is wrong.
Right. And if states want to enact, laws that say, look, if we believe it's frivolous in nature, you're going to pay. You're going to pay the other side's attorney fees, and
right.
That's the
court
remedy.
Costs.
There's your remedy.
And if you commit perjury in the actual court process of obtaining evidence to find out, which side is true, that's where the perjury comes in.
Right.
In that final decision of who was right and who was wrong. And that's the thing, as we've gone through this over the last 5 hours, we're just shaking our heads going, wow.
Well, and that's it. Count 41 is perjury on Robert David Cheeley. And they talked about the knowingly, willfully, and unlawfully made at least one of the following false statements before the Fulton County Special Purpose Grand Jury, a judicial proceeding after having been administered a lawful oath. That's different. Like we said, perjury, you can actually see that we know where the line is.
And that's why we've said, based on the evidence, the perjury charge, if that happened, is a legit charge. Trump is not included in that.
No, he is not. I think, honestly, this was it was a grab. You have to bring in the whole thing, the enterprise thing, because this needs to be about Trump. Nobody even knows who Robert Cheeley is.
I've never heard of him.
Exactly. So you find a few things on people associated with him, and by the way, along the way, you get them, their conviction goes through or whatever, or they come to a plea agreement or whatever. I don't know how, this is going to go down. And you do their perp walk. Trump associate, Robert Cheeley, nobody knows. And you bring in this whole conspiracy thing so that you can make sure that you fold Donald Trump into it. And all you have on him is his words. That's it.
Was he one of the lawyers?
I don't know. I know this was under oath with the Special Purpose Grand Jury. So it does not say attorney, but
Robert Cheeley, yeah.
Is he one of the attorneys?
Little known lawyer, a Trump ally.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would
all right. So there you have it. And I didn't go through all the, there's 5 different statements here that apparently he said he made that were false according to the indictment. But I'd have to go through that and then see where that line is. And if that's true that he made those statements and they were false,
that would be on him.
And you're under oath. That's perjury.
Right. How do you tie that into a conspiracy?
Exactly.
Is even totally up in the air.
Yep.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. It's going to be an interesting day because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of attorneys tearing this apart today.
The only thing that has teeth, potentially, is the Chile perjury charge.
From what I've seen right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll have to go through some
and
of the
so
other
that's if that's the case, then this reeks of every approach they've had with Trump. You go after the smallest fish and the thing that you can prove, and then bring him into the fold to make it look like it was all his doing, and it was this grand conspiracy and everything else. That's about as weak as it gets. Today's going to be an interesting day.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.